Excellent. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Eleanor McClett, and I'm the president of Economic Developers, and I'm located on the beautiful Treaty 7 territory of the Stoney Liari Nakota Nation, Bear Paws, Wesley, and Chiniki, Blackfoot Confederacy, Tsuut'ina Nation, and the beautiful Region 3 Métis Nation in southern Alberta, previously located in northern Alberta. And so, as I was noting before, it was great to see some of those faces join this call here today. I want to just acknowledge and take a moment to acknowledge that this is our first time face-to-face since this weekend's tragic announcement of Graham's passing. Wanted to let you know that we've spent time with Leanne, and she's doing as well as can be expected. Nancy will add the link to the funeral information to the follow-up email. So for those who want to join in person or want to join online on Saturday, that information will be available there for you as well. So know that she's cared for, know that she has family and friends that surround her, and our thoughts and prayers are definitely with her during this this tragic time. And I managed to do that without tears. So I'm glad that you are all able to join us. This is a unique conversation that we're going to have today. And with us here today is Josh Welsh from Y2Y and Patty Richard. So Josh and I actually used to work together in the town of Kenmare, where he was a planner. He is now the Alberta program manager, and very grateful to live in this beautiful territory of the Bow Valley. Josh joined Y2Y after working for 20 years in development, body of work that seeks to balance between land-based conservation and development in Canada and the United States. His approach has always been the dedication to the pursuit of building social and ecological resiliency within communities through ideas big and small. His focus is to connect people to place, nature, and each other. He has a background in planning in mountain towns, landscape architecture, and is a national park ranger. And Josh's primary work is with public and park lands and projects rooted in the nature positive economic development, and nature positive economic development. And its personal connection with the lands are most often made while hiking with his wife and son, while logging countless hours in the mountains as an ultra runner. And we were just rehashing his cougar encounter with him and a rock before everybody joined us. Patty Richards joined Y2Y team after a failed retirement and long and rewarding career focused on communications, community relations, and social performance. She brings her skills around pragmatic, informed, collaborative, and sustainable project management and communication to Y2Y while greatly enjoying a learning curve for science and conservation. Patty has a master's degree in communications, focused on social marketing, and an undergrad degree in art history. She is a volunteer member of the Grant Advisory Committee for Environment for the Calgary Foundation. Her informal education and free time has been based around the eastern slopes of Alberta, whether it is taking range and riparian management courses. And I don't even know what that is, Patty J. I will be honest. Facilitating mutual stakeholders, working groups focused on sustainable development, or in hiking and skiing in parks around Yellowstone to Yukon region. So I want to welcome you today, and I'll hand over the range to, I believe, Josh first.
Thanks, Eleanor. I'm going to share screen with you all. Oops, try that again. All right. Should be good. So I'm gonna look at my notes. Apologies. So thank you all for attending. I'm the program manager for the Alberta team here at Y2Y, Patty's program coordinator. She's largely what's the analogy? The wind beneath the wings of this project. I joined Y2Y back in October, and this project was largely underway. And continues to be led by Patty. And so we're going to tag team the presenting of the work and hopefully have opportunity for dialogue at the end. So as Eleanor had mentioned, she's situated in Treaty 7 territory. So is this project in its entirety. And so the acknowledgement that she gave applies exclusively to this work as well. And so this project really grew out of our desire to strengthen the people part of our mission. We believe that people need to thrive in order for landscapes and nature to thrive, where people exist. And so we recognize that landscapes all across the planet really have been touched by the human hand. And so this work really explores some of the best ways by which development can happen to support human communities throughout time, in perpetuity. So this slide shows the Y2Y vision and mission. It also shows a map of where this work has taken place. Yellowstone to Yukon Conservation Initiative has been around for about 30 years. We were founded in Alberta. We're housed in Canmore. That's where our main office is. We have about 38 staff, and we like to tout that we have about 460 or so partners. Because we have such a small staff in a very large region that we do work within, we rely upon our partnerships to actually get the work done on the ground. And so this project that we're going to talk about is funded by the government of Alberta, their community initiatives program, and by a grant from Alberta Eco Trust. And so when we talk about nature positive, that definition really speaks to the steps taken to reverse the degradation of natural systems and working actively to preserve or enhance ecosystems that exist so that we can ensure communities and the economies associated with them can continue to thrive in perpetuity. And so at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Patty, and then I'll chat again towards the end. So off to you.
Okay, so I'm going to sort of talk through the pragmatics of the project, how it started. As noted, I came off a long career with Shell Canada. I've visited many of your communities in my role leading community relations across the Eastern Slopes for our oil and gas operations. But then I joined Y2Y and started this project. And we were initially looking at the area proximal to the Castle Park and Castle Wildland. But in consultation with folks like Bev Thornton, who's on this call, and the Regional Economic Development Alliance, we sort of expanded the study area, as you will, basically from Ranchland down to Waterton and Crow's Nest Pass to Cardston. If you go to the next slide, please. The project itself, we first formed two different advisory groups, one economic, comprised of economic experts, and the other was a community advisory panel. And these panels both sort of guided us in terms of who to talk to, the data we needed to look at, what was sort of happening on the ground. So once those two advisory groups were formulated, we started to really look at the data. And the data was primarily informed by the federal census. So we're still, we are still seeing the results of the latest census. We'll have the sort of final input in the fall of this year. From then, we contracted an independent company because we wanted it to be as unbiased as possible. So we wanted somebody out there in the community talking to people who people would see as unbiased. And so that's when we hired Stormy Lake Consulting, and they conducted qualitative interviews and a workshop. And that really was just talking to people from a range of different sectors. And I'll get into that in just a slide or two. We're now in the process of finalizing the report. There will be an executive summary, a full report, recommendations, and the data backup that we have. So we are keen to continue to gather feedback on this. We consider this sort of an evergreen process, and look forward to your feedback and the engagements in the next steps. I did want to say that we have presented to local governments. So far, we've presented to the MD and town of Pincher Creek, the MD of Crow's Nest Pass, to the Kainai Nation, and some provincial government organizations and individuals. And we'll continue that rollout to key economic development organizations such as yourselves, community groups, ENGOs, and the like. If we go to the next slide, this was the members of the community advisory panel. And I just wanted you to take a look at this to see that we tried to get as broad a coverage as we could of industries, of viewpoints, of governments. I will also note that we've had involvement from the Blackfoot Confederacy, primarily through the Kainai, but we have had input from the Piikani and other individuals within Treaty 7. The pandemic has made it considerably more challenging for the nations. So we have a parallel effort underway to work with the nations on how nature positive development may assist them, but we are really looking for them to guide the time frame and what that sort of looks like. So just wanted to clarify that that is an ongoing effort. If we go to the next slide, I just wanted to show you some of the organizations that were interviewed. So we had about 65 total interviews, which lasted about half an hour to an hour, across a range of industries and across a range of perspectives. I think what's interesting, and you probably all know about this, a little bit of stakeholder fatigue. At the same time, the town of Pincher Creek was doing some outreach. I know that the government in Alberta was doing their rural economic outreach. So very thankful that we did have this kind of response. This also was, we were also able to get some of this feedback through a workshop that was held, that we were able to hold virtually, because of the pandemic, we could not do it in person. So this just gives you an idea of some of the types of organizations that participated. I think we weren't able to get perhaps all of the perceptions that we wished. We reached out to most of the extractive or all of the extractive industries in the region and didn't get the participation that we would have liked, but we'll continue that effort engagement. And then there are, as there always is, especially in this day and age, diversity of viewpoints around environmental organizations, about the kind of work we were doing. So there were some vociferous individuals who did not necessarily want to participate for their own reasons. But again, we continue to try and look for that engagement. So if we go to the next slide, I think I just wanted to ground us in why is an environmental organization doing this work? And I think the organization itself, Yellowstone to Yukon, has really tried to strengthen the people part of its mission. If people don't thrive, nature may not thrive. So we really want to take a stronger look at what that means, what it means specifically for us in Alberta, these communities that are in the eastern slopes. We really wanted to engage more fully with stakeholders across the region. And we hope it'll provide a way of looking at economic development with a lens of nature. And we think that from there, we can get to some really tangible and positive steps forward. The next slide. This is a graphic that you may be familiar with. The government of Alberta used it in some of the Travel Alberta communications. It was created by Headwaters Economics, which is a US-based organization who's really been at the forefront of this looking at nature-based economies, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, Colorado have really all seen this incredible migration to these small towns, and what it has brought. So it's not just about outdoor recreation and tourism, which is where we so often go right away, but really what happens as a result of sort of living in those beautiful places. And the next slide. One of the things that we really saw, and again, I don't think this will be of any surprise to you, especially around rural economic development, is there is very much a diversity of opinion. We've seen that diversity of opinion come out in many ways over the last couple of years. And I think we wanted to show that we really have seen that down in Southwest Alberta. I've certainly experienced a lot of it, developing sour gas in one of the most beautiful places on earth. But here you'll see that there is there's a lot of support for nature being the economy. Protecting nature really can lead to the most sustainable community. But there's also people there who don't want to see any more development. They don't necessarily want to see an energy transition. There's just there is a diversity of viewpoints. And I think when you see the report, which we hope will be out next week, you'll see that diversity of opinion and perspectives captured. So what is, I think, actually, no, I'll hand this over to Josh, and he's going to talk about what's actually in the report and how we move forward.
Sure. Thanks, Betty. So in our early work to assess plans that exist within the communities of Southwest Alberta, we really learned that there's a lot of areas that are already happening. Things are happening well within those areas. There are places where ideas can be further embellished or built upon. And so we know that many communities within the region have good transportation, infrastructure, healthcare, volunteerism. And so we wanted to sort of build upon that. And what came out of the interviews in the workshop were essentially two overarching categories of strategy. Those are a primary category and an enabling strategy. I'll get to that in a little bit. The three sectors of economic drivers for the region were largely tourism, renewable energy, and agriculture, which is also probably no surprise to this group. What's really interesting is sort of what's behind the scenes, the enabling strategies. And those are things that maybe at face value are not perceived as maybe nature positive or even associated with nature at all, but are essential for certain types of economic development to take place. And so identified by the community were these 5 initiatives, and those were around housing, or land use planning, education, broadband development, business development, and communications. And so what's next? What might you see in the report? Well, we heard a lot from the communities around affordable housing, increasing the workforce or workforce training or transition, collaboration with government at all levels, from municipal to First Nation to federal even. Job creation, obviously important to this type of work, funding access by various groups or individuals, and just this sense that opinions throughout the world are and continue to grow more polarized. And so there's this desire to find ways through work perhaps like this to sort of break down that polarization and to get folks to work together and simply talk and coordinate and collaborate ideas. And so next steps around this work, As Patty had mentioned, our intention is actually to do our big media push next week and publish the report then. So you'll see it very soon. With that will be an executive summary. You'll see some of the data behind the findings. And then we're going to continue to engage with groups. And we have applications out there for funding to help activate some of the recommendations that are captured by this report. Which recommendations? Well, that's going to be up to the communities. But we want to situate ourselves to be in a position to help realize some of this work and continue its progress. What I should mention at this point, though, is what does a group like ours bring to the table? We largely contribute things such as convening, so bringing like-minded and different-minded groups or individuals together. We create our own research or produce our own research or help amplify research of others. So science and research are big pieces that we do. We work with all governments, as I mentioned, and so we have an ability to be pretty nimble throughout those types of relationships. We aren't necessarily, or we kind of see ourselves as a functional player for work like this. We don't particularly hold the ideas ourselves; they're held by the communities, but we are there to help and facilitate through the mindset of what can be nature positive when it comes to economic development. And so these next few slides are going to show just a few example recommendations that came out of the report. In general, yes, share best practices and collaborate. I mean, that's a mantra that we could probably say in every sector, but we reiterate that here. Regarding tourism, there's good work happening through local DMOs, and we're trying to amplify synergies or tourism initiatives, such as those held up by the province around the clusters and corridors model. Regarding renewable energy, there's discussion of supporting or opportunity development cooperatives, such as SABRE, raising awareness for waste energy projects, figuring out ways to offer energy tax incentives, alternative energy tax incentives, holistically or inclusively to the region. There are tax credits available to some municipal governments, but not to First Nations, for instance, because of jurisdictional issues. So regarding housing, there's a need for affordable housing pretty much everywhere. And so if you are intending to transition your economy and help a full spectrum of workers, you need to be able to help support affordable housing. So there's various ideas there on how you do that. Education, there's a lot of discussion around the ideas of satellite campuses or even distributed learning. It's one bright light from COVID is that we've all realized that we don't necessarily need to work in an office or need to work on a particular campus or learn on a particular campus, that this can happen anywhere. And so what's interesting about this idea is that you can make that education more place-based. You can gear it towards the needs of a particular community and retain the youth that we saw from the socioeconomic impact assessment that we funded for this project, seeing them leaving. They're largely leaving this region. So there's approaches within our work here to try and figure out how to retain youth. And then broadband. Some communities in Southwest Alberta have strong broadband, but others do not. So there's a call in there to make sure that, again, there's inclusive and holistic access throughout the region, so that startups, for instance, can show up, where people who don't rely upon a particular locale to work can work effectively. And so what's happening right now, I should just mention real quickly, the government in Alberta, which you're probably all aware, you maybe took the survey, they are doing their second round of engagement around their rural economic development initiative. There was a survey done, and now they're going throughout Alberta to sort of speak to the initiatives that they heard people want to see. There's various emerging themes and focus areas through this work. We just met with them, a few of the representatives who are working on this project from forestry, agriculture, and rural economic development. I forget their actual ministry. They change titles a lot. But we saw that the findings of our work really aligned with the findings of their work. It's just some of the language is slightly different, but what was promising is that we see these synergies and we both want to continue to work together. And so we're going to continue to help amplify what they're doing and vice versa. And we also heard that they're interested in putting some of the findings of our report into their recommendations, because they did come from these communities, right? So this is just a slide to sort of mention what's ongoing at the provincial level too, that has synergies with this work. And so this slide really shows the pinpoint, the focus of where this particular project was housed, and it's small in relative relation to the entire Y-to-Y region, but the hope is that the learnings from this work and some of the work that our BC team did in the Upper Columbia region can provide a roadmap or can be transferable to other communities throughout the province. And so right now we're doing work to synthesize what we learned here, figure out what might be transferable. And we're putting this out there in the world to say, you know, which communities might be next? Where do you all think this type of work or this type of perspective could be received or even needed throughout Alberta? So that's a question that I'll pitch to you all. If we want to open that to dialogue, that would be great. And so these last few slides, I want to speak to how you could help and how we might be able to help. And so from what you've heard today, it'd be great to hear some feedback, but more importantly, we would appreciate you taking a look at the report, providing feedback to us through any channel. We're happy to come back and chat. Obviously, those working on solutions that are relevant to this arena, we'd love to see support of those folks and organizations to help continue their good work. Additional partners, we're always identifying new partners. So if you have any in mind, we'd love to hear them. Similarly, work that's underway that may not be fully mentioned here that we can help explore, perhaps even help pilot in the future. And then providing support for any of the recommendations that resonate with you, your particular community or organization. We would love that support as well. And so when it comes to how we might be able to help in any of the work that you all do within your communities, these bullets largely list ways in which we work throughout our projects, but in particular, this could be applicable to nature positive economic development. And so I had mentioned that a lot of our work is around convening meetings, and that's through building potential and synergies with cross-sectional partners. We can provide and author research and information. We can amplify work that's already underway, such as what I mentioned in the province. And then we have relationships with governments at all scales and levels. And so that's enabled us to be effective on many fronts. And then because we are a nonprofit charity organization, we rely on fundraising, we rely on donors. And so we can, we have the ability to regift or help push funds in certain ways, whether or not we work on the project or others do to fundraise or manage for pilot projects that are relevant to this line of work. So I wanted to share those things, and with that, I'll bring it to a close. Patty and I really appreciate your time, and if there are questions or we can simply open this for dialogue, that would be great. Here's our contact info on the slide, and stay tuned for our big media push and the link to the digital version of this report. Thank you.